It's just gone 6:30 and you're watching East Midlands Today. Tonight, dozens of farmers descend on supermarkets in their tractors in a mass protest. These were the scenes in many areas of the region as farmers took their protest about changes to the inheritance tax cap direct to shoppers.
There is a big disparity from what the public perceive where their food comes from. So if we can come out like today, just to give that connection between farming and what's on the shelves.
A coroner rules a baby boy could have survived had he received appropriate care at Nottingham's Queen's Medical Centre. The investigative journalist from Leicester who exposed the Salisbury poisoners is awarded an honorary degree. And he's not just big, he's literally a giant. So find out what happens when the gladiator strongman is pitched against little Twiggy.
Giant, ready.
3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome to Friday's East Midlands Today with me, Sarah Hawley. First tonight, protest convoys of dozens of tractors headed out to supermarket car parks around Nottinghamshire and Leicestershire today. Farmers were protesting about last autumn's budget changes to the inheritance tax cap, which will affect farm estates worth more than £1 million. Exactly how many farms will have to pay is in dispute, but farmers say they fear small family farms will go out of business. Our rural affairs correspondent Sally Bowman went to meet some of them in West Bridgford this morning.
Well, this car park in West Bridgford outside Asda is the first stop for a convoy of around 32 tractors that early this morning made their way across Trent Bridge in protest at changes in the autumn budget. Farmers are handing out leaflets to shoppers and they're particularly stressing that the inheritance tax is going to have an impact on family farms. Well, with me is Edward Greaves, who's a farmer from Long Clawson. Edward, what would you say you're trying to get across to shoppers today?
The message to shoppers is to inform the connection between us and them. Our message is most probably, as you say there, we are giving out leaflets of why we're here. What's instigated it is the inheritance tax.
Right now, owners of farmland don't have to pay any inheritance tax, but from April 2026, families inheriting estates worth more than £1 million will be taxed at a rate of 20%. That's half the usual rate, but these farmers say family farms are in danger.
I'm fighting for our future. This is my future. This is, what I've spent most of my life trying to build up is the family farm. A future for my next generation, my son and my daughter.
I've got a 7-year-old daughter that wants to come through and she loves the farming, and I'd like to be able to pass it on to her without... It's like I've only got a 300-acre farm and I'll have to sell part of it if to pass it over sort of thing, and it probably won't be viable then.
Coming from a farming background, I've grown up on the farm. I'd like to continue to be on the farm, but with all this inheritance tax, it might not be the possibility that I could have for my future to continue on from my dad's footsteps to continue farming.
The protests were timed to minimise disruption and maximise impact. Farmers want the public on their side and for the government to rethink. DEFRA told us families will have 10 years to pay off any tax owing interest-free, and they plan to boost profits for farmers by backing British produce and reforming planning rules.
So that was Sally Bowman looking at the focus of today's protest, which was inheritance tax. But there was another big change in the autumn budget that's having a more immediate impact on many farms, an unexpected drop in the direct payments designed to replace EU subsidies. Sally's also been out to visit a farmer in Rutland.
This is what's called grass-free legume mix.
Chartered environmentalist, county council chairman and Rutland farmer. Andrew Brown is proud of his eco-credentials.
We've got clover, we've got vetches, and these are really good for fixing nitrogen in the soil.
Although this year the weather has made nature-friendly farming a challenge.
Because of the wet weather, it didn't really take very well, so I might end up having to re-establish this in the next couple of months.
But the money he gets for green schemes won't fill the £20,000 hole in his income left by last autumn's budget changes to his direct payments. Those were brought in as a replacement for EU subsidies, but were always going to be phased out by 2027. What's been a surprise is how fast that will now happen. From April, a farmer who might have been expecting tens of thousands in direct payments will only get 7,200.
We weren't expecting this massive drop in one go because it was meant to be going down in a linear fashion, and now it has sort of gone off a cliff edge. And I was talking to the manager of a big estate, and he'd got in his budget for next year 400,000, and he's going to get 7,200 now. Now that is a massive drop.
DEFRA says the cuts allowed them to protect the overall farming budget. That's designed to wean farmers off subsidies based on how much land they own and replace them with payments for meeting environmental targets. But Andrew's found those schemes aren't reliable. He wants to fence off the other side of this hedgerow to stop sheep polluting the stream.
But those capital grant schemes have now just completely been put on hold. Without the funding, I can't afford to protect this watercourse.
But for Andrew, the biggest issue is food imports and food security.
If we were to take all the food that we produce in this country, not import anything, start eating it on the 1st of January, it would run out around the middle of August. So I think they should be incentivising farmers like me to grow more food, as well as doing things for the environment. It's a balancing act, and I think the balance has tipped too far now. It's a natural thing to do for the government to subsidise that food production, and most countries in the world, if not all countries in the world, do that. Because you've got a choice. You either subsidise your farmers to produce food, or you pay more for that food so they can carry on. You cannot leave food production to the free market. It doesn't work.
Sally Bowman, BBC East Midlands Today, Rutland.
Well, the government has also told us that they'll invest £5 billion into farming over the next 2 years, the largest budget for sustainable food production in our country's history, they say. And you can see more on this story on Sunday with the Politics East Midlands. Join Geeta and her guests at 10 a.m, or you can watch on BBC iPlayer later. Next tonight, a coroner has made a damning conclusion that a baby boy would have survived had he received better care at Nottingham's Queen's Medical Centre. Teddy Martin was 5 weeks old when there were complications during a procedure to swap his breathing tubes. The inquest heard of a series of failings and an urgent need to improve hospital culture. Well, our health correspondent Rob Sissons was at today's inquest. Rob, a tragic preventable death.
Yes, the scrutiny of Teddy Martin's death is just the latest case to reveal serious failings at Nottingham University hospitals. The Trust finds itself, of course, at the centre of the biggest investigation into maternity failings in NHS history. Right now, 2,000 deaths and injuries of babies and women are being examined by Donna Ockenden and her team, a senior midwife, over years. Well, Teddy Martin's death happened almost a year into that investigation in September of 2023. He died in the neonatal unit, born at 31 weeks with a rare genetic condition, which had meant he had a large tongue. It made breathing for him more difficult. Now, the procedure to switch a tube from his mouth to his nose was an appropriate action, we heard, but the risks were not properly considered, nor enough steps put in place in case of things going wrong, as they did. The nasal tube inserted had been dislodged by the mouth tube being removed.
What did the families have to say, Rob?
Well, after the 5-day inquest, Teddy's mum and dad, that's Ellie Clufferty and Ainsley Martin from Ruddington in Nottinghamshire, were just too upset to talk tonight, but their solicitor read a statement on the steps of the coroner's court on their behalf.
We are heartbroken by the tragic loss of our son Teddy. We have fought tirelessly to understand why he died, and we now know that that was due to avoidable failures in his care. The lack of accountability and communication from the Trust has added to the pain of losing our son. We hope his legacy prevents other families from experiencing what we have. Whilst we are disappointed that there was no prevention of future deaths order today, we are extremely grateful to the coroner for her full and fearless investigation. Teddy was and always will be so loved. We miss our beautiful boy so much.
Now, the coroner said the family weren't involved enough in the decision to swap the tubes, nor the risks properly explained. They later struggled to get information and medical notes from the Trust, and Donna Ockenden, leading the Nottingham maternity investigation, intervened on their behalf.
So, Rob, what have the hospital had to say about this?
Tonight they've issued a statement saying they are truly sorry for substandard care. They stress some changes have already been implemented in the neonatal service. The assistant coroner hearing the case, Elizabeth Didcock, highlighted that there was a need to change culture that had been identified by the trust, but she described it as an unenviable task. She said the coroner's office would be watching the implementation of the improvements.
Rob Sissons for that, thank you very much. You're watching East Midlands Today, and next tonight, 3 Nottingham libraries which were earmarked for closure now look set to be run by volunteers. The Basford, Bilborough and Aspley libraries will remain open under the new plans, with the building still owned by the County City Council, which stands to save £1.5 million. The Radford Lenton Library, meanwhile, which was also set to shut, will now continue to be run directly by the council.
So the rationale is by working with the voluntary sector organisations, we will be able to have these organisations take on the running and management of these buildings, be able to access funding that we can't access, to repair them, maintain them, improve them, to, if anything, broaden the services that are available. By using the voluntary organisations in this way, we will ensure that the library doors remain open for the community to access and that we avoid library closures, which we don't want and the public don't want.
Well, also saved from permanent closure, a swimming pool in one corner of Leicestershire. Queniborough Pool, which dates back to the mid-1800s, shut in October 2023, but has been refurbished by a local couple. It's officially reopened today and will teach toddlers and young children life-saving skills.
The children that are coming to use this pool, they'll be able to learn not only swimming, but essential life skills. So hopefully we're protecting children's lives for the future.
Parking enforcement officers will be patrolling parts of the Derbyshire Peak District this weekend after cars blocked some routes last weekend. These photos show how some routes near Edale were unpassable after hundreds of drivers parked on both sides of the road. Gritters and emergency crews were unable to get through. In a bid to avoid similar scenes happening again, the County Council says it's taking action.
This weekend we'll have our parking enforcement officers out again throughout the weekend. We'll have extra patrols if needed as well, and so we will be taking action, we'll be ticketing for any vehicles that are parked unsafely, and we will continue to work with other agencies such as the police as well.
Next, the fight against disinformation that's earned an investigative journalist from Leicester an honorary degree. Elliot Higgins set up a website called Bellingcat that exposed the Salisbury poisoners. He's told us how he was targeted after investigating the Russian state. Our social affairs correspondent Jeremy Ball reports.
I present Elliot Higgins.
Recognition for exposing uncomfortable truths in the city where Elliot Higgins went from amateur blogger to the head of an organisation with researchers across the globe.
We sometimes can look around the world and see a rise in authoritarianism, a regression of democracy, but what the work of Bellingcat offers to the public is an opportunity for everyone to become involved with the process of shoring up our democracy, to actually say that the truth does matter.
Their first major investigation was into Flight MH17, which came down in Ukraine. Bellingcat uses what's known as open-source intelligence, including images from satellites and smartphones, information that's out there on the internet.
You'd be really surprised how often soldiers will just post stuff on the internet of where they are, what they're doing. And all those little echoes of their action on the ground can be pieced together to give you a much clearer sense of what they're doing.
4 years later, the poisonings of Sergei and Yulia Skripal in Salisbury. The two suspects claimed to be tourists, but Bellingcat produced evidence they were from Russia's intelligence services.
You have been targeted personally by the Russian state, haven't you?
Yeah, I've definitely been targeted personally in various ways. So that includes people trying to spy on me, but then there's cyber attacks on online accounts. It does make you worried. You do think maybe you're going to be next if that's the case.
And now Bellingcat's evidence about war crimes is being used by the International Criminal Court. But helping people separate fact from fiction is a fight of its own.
Do you think we've lost the war against disinformation?
I think it's more that we're in a dead heat with the disinformation at the moment. And I think people don't realise that because they think, well, I'm getting my information from 50 different sources. But those 50 different sources are getting all the information from each other.
Elliot's working with universities to tackle that challenge, A battle for people's minds.
Thank you again.
Jeremy Ball, BBC East Midlands Today, Leicester.
Well, it's time for sport now, and 2 for the price of 1, because not just Colin, there's Nat as well.
Yes, a very good evening to you. Nat is with me tonight because we're going to be talking about all things Premier League and the battles at the top and the bottom. Now, the fixtures, Forest against Southampton, Leicester against Fulham, they look dull on paper, but trust me, they're anything but. Nat, explain it to us. Tell us why these games are so massive.
Yeah, huge, Colin. Leicester in just a moment, but first Nottingham Forest, because they are the story of the season, aren't they? Up there in 3rd in the Premier League at this stage. No one expected it, but this game with Southampton is a bit of a banana skin. They're bottom of the table, and Forest need to win, don't they? They need to keep pushing the league leaders, Liverpool, and keep that momentum at the top there. In the late 70s, Forest did become English champions, famously, as we all know. And today, I've been speaking to those heroes of the past.
Dictators are out, but I would love to be the perfect dictator.
50 years ago, Brian Clough became Nottingham Forest manager, creating one of football's greatest ever success stories. Today, ahead of this weekend's Southampton game, one of Clough's European Cup winners says the glory days are back and Forest can win the title.
All those years ago when Forest won the championship, Bob Wilson said, oh, the bubble will burst, you know, it never did. No, we can keep putting the pressure on. You know, Liverpool drew with Man United, lost to Tottenham, drew with us, so they've got a lot of games coming their way, are in all competitions, and that can take its toll. So yeah, why shouldn't we stay up there? Europe to start with, and then just believe, you know, anything's possible.
And Chris Wood scores from the penalties.
How different a test is Southampton from Liverpool test, is it?
Totally different team, totally different test for us, but all equally challenging and difficult. We can see from yesterday that we're going to face a tough opponent. Nothing changes in our approach.
Happy birthday! Today, Ian Storey-Moore, another star of the 70s, celebrated his 80th birthday and says the feel-good feeling around the city is back.
Oh, it's fantastic, isn't it, really? I mean, everywhere you go, even I live in out at Bingham, which is a small market town, and even people there come and stop me and say, oh, did you go to Forest last night? And I mean, you go down to the ground now to the matches, and the atmosphere is absolutely unbelievable, isn't it, really?
Johnny Owen's been a director at the club for the last 8 years.
I don't think anybody predicted, you know, that they would be this far up the table. I'm just delighted they're not in a relegation battle, to be honest. I'm happy with that. That'll do me. Because it's so important. But listen, you know, they've got themselves into a fantastic position. You take it game by game, and you know, you see where you end up at the end of the season. Nobody's taking anything for granted with the club, certainly. You know, we're just like quietly going about the business and hoping this continues.
Happy birthday to you! So lots to celebrate right now with Forest and their legends daring to dream.
Happy birthday, Ian. I've just got to check that. Could I catch you singing there?
Yeah, guilty. Sorry about that, everyone at home.
We're going to skate over that. Let's talk Leicester City, shall we? Because over the last few weeks, they've gone from simply struggling to being in properly deep water, haven't they? Just how big has this weekend become for them?
Yeah, it was billed as a pivotal week this week. It really was. They avoided a points deduction on Monday, and they had 2 big home games coming up and lost 2-0 to Crystal Palace on Wednesday night. That game didn't live up to the expectation. And, you know, it's difficult for Leicester at the moment. They are shipping goals and they're on a 6-game unbeaten run, a winless run. They just can't seem to buy a win. This game then tomorrow at home to Fulham is absolutely key. Ruud van Nistelrooy knows it could go to the wire if they're to stay up, and it's going to be a challenge.
We talked about it for a while now. It's a matter of getting those good performances into points. And that's the target, because we know where we are in the league. We know that only points can get us out of that situation. Desperately, we want to be out of that situation by the end of May. And we know that every game that we're not collecting, that is 1 game's gone.
So how do they get out of it then?
They just need to stop leaking those goals, Colin. In Ruud van Nistelrooy's 9 games since he's been there in 6 weeks, they have shipped 21 goals. Leicester are 14th, they're in the bottom 3 and they are 2 points from safety. Now, with 17 games to go, you'd think, why are we talking about must win? But this is Fulham, this is Crystal Palace. These are the games they need to be winning if they are to stay in the division or getting something out of them. And it feels like a win would just lift the gloom. It would lift everyone's mentality. And, you know, it is huge at the battle of the bottom this weekend.
Thank you ever so much for coming in to talk to us about all that. Let's look at the fixtures overall, shall we? Because Derby County could really use a home win. They won't find it easy, though, against Watford. In League One, second place Wycombe Wanderers are the visitors to playoff-chasing Mansfield Town. And in League Two, every point counts. Just below the leaders, it's a ridiculously tight contest at the top there. Just to mention, Leicester Tigers in European action in Toulouse. Nottingham Panthers are at home tomorrow night, but all eyes right now on the Premier League.
Oh, thank both of you. Thank you so much. Now, if you thought Panto season was over, well, you're wrong. Christmas might be long gone, but bringing a bit of joy into the dark nights of January are a group of amateur players from Mansfield. And our reporter Steve Beach is at the theatre tonight to see how they're getting prepared. Are you in the Panto spirit there?
I certainly am, Sarah. It's women dressed as boys, men dressed as women, not the East Midlands Today staff party, but Cinderella here at the Mansfield Palace Theatre, being performed by the Westfield Folk House. 80-odd years have been doing this. Let's meet the woman herself, Cinderella, who's ready for the performance this evening. How's it going so far?
Oh, we've been having such a good time here at the Palace. It's been amazing. We've had some lovely audiences, lots of boys and girls, lots of grown-ups coming to watch us. So yeah, very, very exciting.
For many youngsters, this is the first time they actually appear in Panto, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, and it's so lovely that we are giving them that first experience and they're able to see everything.
We have a couple of intruders here, Cinderella. Who do we have here?
I'm Hernia.
And you're?
And I'm Nausea.
And I'm guessing you're the ugly sisters, perhaps?
What are you implying?
Yes. Exactly, we're the beautiful ones.
Yes.
And tell me about the frock you've thrown on tonight.
Well, it looks like it's been thrown up on, but yeah, actually, no. This is one of our designer outfits that we wear during the show. Yes,
that's right. Comes from Matt Allen.
Yes. And what are the audiences like here in Mansfield? I gather you have a few places around here that you take the mickey out of.
Well, yes, we do, and the audience expect that. But the audiences have been actually fantastic this year. Well, every year, so, you know, but they love it. They love the local references, and it brings it home to them a little bit more.
Yeah. It's one of the traditional pantos where we want them to join in. We want the "it's behind you," and no, he isn't, yes, he is, that sort of thing. It's very much traditional.
Definitely. It's an amateur panto, but it's one that you should take very seriously, don't you?
Oh yes, yeah. We've been rehearsing twice a week since September.
Yeah.
Musically, we've been having the music ready since about April.
Yep. Yes, it is. It's a big commitment for everybody involved, and the guys behind the production team behind it will be starting work where they are thinking about next year's already. Yeah. So it's all year round thing for them. Yeah.
Well, the audience are just behind me here at the theatre. They are behind the cloth here, getting ready for the performance this evening. It runs until Sunday here at the Mansfield Palace Theatre. It's going to be a great one, isn't it?
Oh, it certainly is.
You just want to say, oh no, it's not. But I mean, obviously it looks like it really will be. But if you fancy staying in and watching the telly instead, then grab your foam fingers and settle in for the show with more lycra than Torval and Dean's wardrobe, because Gladiators is back on BBC One tomorrow night. The action-packed programme sees athletic members of the public compete against the gigantic gladiators. The biggest of the lot is Giant from Ilkeston in Derbyshire. And he's been putting little Twiggy from BBC Radio Derby through his paces.
You look even bigger than you did last year.
I've been working on it, mate. You know.
How's it been last year for you?
Yeah, it's been a massive success. Shall we use a pun, giant success?
What can we expect then, new series-wise?
So we brought back a classic game, Atlaspheres. And there's an additional 2 new gladiators, 1 male, 1 female.
I've got some of these sticks here. What do they call? You're famous for these sticks.
People
right?
like to call them giant cotton buds, but they are called pugil sticks.
I shall take my headphones off.
Are you covered for this, insurance-wise?
Don't you
Are you sure it's going to be okay?
Twiggy, ready!
Giant, ready!
3, 2, 1!
What do we do now? Right, I think the only thing to do is Giant is now in control of the radio show. Here we go.
The sound of where we live.
Breakfast with Andy Twigg.
He's still there. No, you'll be glad to hear that even after absorbing that mighty blow, Twiggy is alive and well. And Gladiators returns to BBC One and BBC iPlayer this Saturday at 5:50. And I tell you what, I'll be watching, Anna, because I love Gladiators.
Yeah,
what about you?
We do. My girls absolutely love it. Everyone loves it. So yes, sitting still to watch that tomorrow. What are we expecting weather-wise over the weekend? It's staying settled, but look at these changes we're starting to see across the East Midlands. The croci, the snowdrops starting to come out. It really is starting to feel, maybe it's not feeling like spring, but maybe like we're edging towards spring that little bit. But out there at the moment, you can't see it, but there's a high pressure system sitting down here. That's what's been helping to keep all the weather fronts at bay over the last couple of days. It holds on a little bit longer, so we are expecting it to be largely settled and dry across the weekend, but temperatures will edge down that little bit. Now, we've had quite a lot of cloud with us through the day today, and that I think will thicken overnight tonight. We'll see some mist, perhaps some hill fog in places. A chilly night, temperatures down to freezing for some of us. And as we go into Saturday morning, it holds on to all of that cloud really, but there's a little bit of a breeze as we go into the afternoon. That might just lift it slightly, allow for a thinning and a chance of a few bright spells at times. Always a bit cloudier the further east you go, but temperatures are lower than what we've had today. I think for many of us we'll be hovering around 4 degrees Celsius on Saturday. Could see a little bit more in the way of fog, a lot of low cloud again around to start Sunday. I don't think it will break up as much as we're expecting it to tomorrow, so staying with us throughout the day, and that means those temperatures again a little bit lower, highs of 3 degrees Celsius on Sunday. As we go into start of next week, we do have a cold front, quite a weak one moving through Sunday into Monday. Maybe give us a spot of rain or two, but then through Monday and Tuesday, we stay yet again dry and settled. But then there's a bit of a change as we go from Wednesday onwards. There's this area of low pressure sitting across the Azores. Now, the help of that and actually a strengthening jet stream, it's going to be quite active for the end of next week. We'll start to see a change in weather pattern, really. We will begin to see a little bit more in the way of rain at times, but the temperature's sitting around average or just above.
Anna, thank you very much for that. Well, that's all from the team for now. You can join Mel for an update on the late news. That's at 10:30. From all of us here, have a lovely weekend. Bye-bye.